Hello, this is Father Michael Lampe, the Associate Pastor at Ascension in Chesterfield, Missouri, and I come to you with another video reflection. Today I would like to reflect a bit on Palm Sunday. So, Palm Sunday is a day that we celebrate the triumphant entry of Jesus Christ into Jerusalem. And if we look at the Gospel passage for the solemn procession, the main entrance into the church, when we were able to celebrate in that way, unfortunately, due to the coronavirus precautions, the Palm Sunday celebration for 2020 did not include the solemn procession. But if we were to look at that reading, that gospel passage that describes this event, Jesus triumphantly entering into Jerusalem with people saying, "Hosanna in the highest." If we look at that passage from the Gospel of Matthew in chapter 21, verses 1 through 11, we would see his depiction, his description of that entrance. One of the things that stood out to me in that particular passage is the fact that Jesus Christ is coming to Jerusalem on an ass, which is a donkey, and a colt, which is a young male horse. And it mentions two animals. This detail is not included in the other Gospels. And I know sometimes people would think, so what did that look like? Is Jesus kind of like got one leg over each animal? And that would be incredibly awkward, trying to ride both at the same time. No. Most likely, Jesus was not riding both at the same time. Coming from the Mount of Olives, he would have ridden one animal on the way down, descending down from the Mount of Olives, and then another animal ascending up Mount Zion, ascending up towards Jerusalem, ascending up and entering into the city itself. But why include this detail when the other gospel authors, Luke, Mark, John, didn't care to do the same? Well, we have to think about what is the purpose, what are the primary points that Matthew is trying to make in his gospel. And that will help us to understand why he includes this particular detail. In the Gospel of Matthew, he wants to try to help the Jewish people recognize that Jesus really is the Messiah. So if we look at the whole gospel, throughout the gospel, he is constantly quoting prophecy. He's constantly quoting the Old Testament. That way they can see how Jesus is fulfilling the Old Testament. And that would help convince them that Jesus truly is the Messiah. In fact, we even see that in our gospel passage from Matthew chapter 21, verses 1 through 11. He's quoting from the prophet Zechariah. And it says, "Say to daughter Zion, behold, your king comes to you, meek and riding on an ass, and on a colt, the foal of a beast of burden." So it's important for Matthew to include this detail because it shows the fulfillment of prophecy, which helps us to understand that Jesus is the Messiah. Because that prophecy tells us what's going to happen. Your king comes to you. This Messiah king is being promised, and Jesus is fulfilling it. Jesus is the Messiah. It's one of the key points that Matthew is trying to make. But there's another point that Matthew is making. Another key theme of Matthew is that Jesus came to be the Messiah, yes, to save the Jews, yes, but also to save the Gentiles, a second group of people, everyone who's not Jewish. And this is symbolically represented by the fact that Jesus rode two animals, one being the ass, the donkey, and the other one being the colt, the young horse. And so the people of Jerusalem carrying their king is represented by the donkey. King David actually rode a donkey, and so it's showing the connection there between Jesus and King David. But the fact that he rode the colt as well shows that he is also bringing in the Gentiles. Colt, not only can it mean a young male horse, typically one of less than 4 years, but in some understandings of the word, it can also refer to a foolish individual. And so in the eyes of the Jews, the Gentiles could have seemed foolish. And so even in this play on words, this other understanding of the meaning of the word colt, we can see how that can apply to the Gentile people in the sense of they weren't given the great gift of this relationship with God, and so they are following their pagan ways because they don't know otherwise. And so in the eyes of the Jewish people, they can seem kind of foolish. But also the colt would be an animal that would be more likely used by the Gentiles. And so Jesus, writing both, emphasizes that second point, main theme of Matthew, that Jesus came not only for the Jews, but also for the Gentiles. And so when we recognize these two main themes of Matthew, the fact that he includes the detail that Jesus rode on two animals makes a lot more sense. He's showing that Jesus really is the Messiah to the Jews, and that Jesus came not only for them, but also for the Gentiles. So thank you for tuning in for this video reflection. Hopefully it has helped you to have a greater understanding of this passage of the Gospel of Matthew. And I hope that during this Holy Week, you are able to enter more fully into this liturgical expression, this journey with Jesus as he is headed towards his passion, death, and resurrection, which we celebrate in the Triduum, the 3 days of the year that is the shortest season, actually, just being those 3 days. Triduum, Latin for 3 days. The holiest days of the year for all of us. And so we hope that you will be able to join us for those and that you will enter more spiritually into those activities. Thank you and God bless.